Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of May the 1st until the 7th, 2023. We have a really powerful, a really active, and in a symbolic sense, multitasking sky and week ahead of us. And this date 1st of May is so symbolic, suggestive from so very many different perspectives, some astrological, others not as much. And this 1st of May is a really important pagan celebration, Beltane. So I would like to wish a very blessed and happy Beltane to everyone who celebrates it. And this is the festival, the celebration, the remembrance of love and fertility and union, especially in couple and stuff like that. So this is when we invite love and fertility and basically the flow of life into our existence. And I do believe that this is quite suggestive because Pluto is also, and this is one of the astrological sides of the 1st of May, is going retrograde. So this Pluto retrograde begins on the 1st of May and lasts until the 10th of October 2023, and Pluto will retrograde out of Capricorn on the 11th of June. But right now it is standing still in the sky, it is motionless, and very, very, very slowly from the 1st of May it will start moving backwards. But of course, on the 1st of May it is still basically standing still. And when any planet, especially with Pluto, which is making this stationary movement, well, its symbolism is that much more amplified, and chances are immediately we are going to be getting a much more clearer and internalized expression of what Pluto in the sign of Aquarius is going to do for us in that sense individually, but of course collectively as well, because we cannot ignore the collective side of Aquarius. Now, what does this have to do with Beltane? In very many ways, especially in personal charts, Pluto many times has to do with attraction, it has to do with sexual power, or the power that sexuality holds. It can be seen in so very many different ways. And now that it is in the sign of Aquarius, of course, correlated with the Beltane symbol, perhaps we might find ourselves that our attractions and how attractions and connections and union in that sense takes place in our lives is so very different than it was until now, because only now can we truly get a very small glimpse of this side of Pluto. Now, another important fact to this 1st of May is that in European countries, ex-communist European countries, usually this was, and in some places still is, celebrated as Laborers' Day. I'm not sure how to translate this literally, but when they celebrate labor and it's a holiday, it's a day off, and people usually, go out because it's the beginning of the summer, spend time in nature at least a day, and they, connect with their families, friends, neighbors, co-workers, of course. So this is also suggestive because, especially in those places where it's still ongoing, you can imagine that connections will happen the same way that it used to happen, but something is different. That Pluto brings the element that a lot is different right now. A lot is different because, what value labor and work in a classical sense means to us has changed profoundly. Where Pluto was one element involved in that great change and transformation. Of course, we're speaking about January 2020 when Pluto met Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. And of course, this translated in our collective expression as the COVID and everything that went with it. That kind of transformed our relationship, our value, what value we give. It's not necessarily a Venusian expression of value, but a Plutonian one where it's the power of it. what power does it hold over us? And there was Saturn. Is it worth it or not? So, because that changed in collective feeling, collective psyche, if you want to call it that way, it is only now when we actually experience how this changed our behavior, our attitude towards labor, and what it is that we need to do for survival for some people and to have power for others, Pluto ultimately. This is where we will get a different picture of this, and the picture is more internal because interiorization, when a planet goes retrograde, it turns inwards of this Pluto, of the power we have, and of course external reality in labor in this case has over us. um, but of course there is much more happening this week than just this Pluto going retrograde or the 1st of May or the celebration of love, because the sky is really filled with sextiles. And that means what I said at the beginning, that reality is a little bit multifunctional. It does everything or tries to do at the same time. So these sextiles for us personally can mean initiatives, it can mean something that we follow on. Without a doubt, a lot is going to do with the Mercury retrograde unfolding in our lives. Whatever it is that we need to focus on, whatever it is that we need to do, not do in some cases. So, this will keep us rather busy, but of course, the multitasking is there. Fate is working really, really intensely. Karma is unfolding without stopping it at the same time, because the way I see these sextiles, it is more an energy of the immediate present where we do solve things, we do manage, we do navigate the day, the week, the month, whatever is going on with our lives, especially constructively, productively, or whatever issues we know now that we need to solve under this Mercury retrograde. But at the same time, there is the bigger nuance, the heavy fate and fated elements unfolding before our eyes. May it have to do with family, with us, person, whatever area of life it is. It's very, very intense. So we might be feeling Pluto in Aquarius going retrograde, Aquarius a dual sign, a dual fixed sign. We might be feeling that we are living two lives, two realities at the same time. There is the sextile energy where it doesn't matter what the big picture is, we still need to be there, the date, the appointment, fix this, fix that, find this, find that, you know what I mean? And there is, well, fate is also coming hard. I need to process, I need to be aware, I need to be there for other people, there for loved ones, there for myself, there for the spirit, maybe it's 12th house, something to do. So it's really, really intense, and it will really make us feel this. This will cause a fatigue, this will cause a certain kind of burnout, yet it is not the, worst kind. Yet it's, of course, not going to be easy, because there is other energies which do complicate things a little bit or maybe more, and one of them is Mars squaring Chiron. This is not an easy energy, because it's not just the self that we need to take into consideration, which would be Chiron in the sign of Aries, the head, individualistic, personal, my journey, my way, my life, my decisions, all of this, and the wounding Chiron. Everything that is a problem, everything that is hindering, everything that is aching in many ways. And then there's squaring Mars in Cancer. That basically means I'm there for the family, I'm there for the collective, I'm there for my roots, I'm there for everything. Basically, the family protector. This is a highly defensive energy. So, this is where the individual wounds might not matter as much this week, because there is the need to be there in a larger sense, as I said, Mars and whatever we're defending. But at the same time, the square, we cannot also ignore our vulnerabilities and our needs, which really aren't met, because that can also be Chiron in Aries. Something that is wounding us continuously in the now because something is not met. Like there is a wound on physical wound on my hand or whatever, and I do need to find a dressing for it or a bandage or to give it attention, otherwise it can only just get worse. So the bandage and to find it would be the square, because we can delay it, we can prioritize, but that will also matter. That cannot also not be ignored, our own wound. And perhaps this is the best way to navigate through this Mars and Chiron wound. And let us not forget that it is Mars who is the ruling planet of Aries, where Chiron is. So it's a very strong Martian energy that will need our uh, inner guidance, but us to, execute it, us to follow our own leadership in that sense. And before I move on, I would also like to say that Jupiter, uh, not at this moment, but this is part of Pluto retrograde, is going to have a moment after it enters into the sign of Taurus, and it will be at 0 degree. It will hold a square with this Pluto retrograde, so that will amplify it, that will magnify it. That will also cause a certain kind of powerlessness, especially materially, over our financial lives. This is more in the middle of May, after the 15th of May, when we can feel the power of the square. And this energy can also be in a certain way that it doesn't matter what we believe in Jupiter and how we manage diligently, wisely, whatever virtue you want, our material situation or that fixed area of life. Pluto comes with adversity, Pluto comes with instability, and Pluto comes with, there are certain things which simply we're not prepared, because we're the first generation of human beings, souls, in any way, even spiritually, if you will, that live this expression of this energy. So we don't really have a past reference point in any way, shape, and not even spiritually. So we are like the first ones, the first generation, who somehow has to invent Uranus in the sign of Taurus, how to navigate through this. And that might sometimes cause a sense of powerlessness, because Jupiter can represent the fate, Jupiter can represent the virtue, justice, truth. All of that might be on the individual side, but Pluto makes them not matter as much. This is where, even, let's say, an example, you're not alone. You have a partner, children, family, and you're very, very strong together. Like you're a really stable and strong family with strong love. But if no one knows what to do, then I guess a permanent family council mode is the best choice. It is the powerlessness. No one knows what to do at certain moments. And this is where Pluto, not even the family together in my example, well, the togetherness in certain situations, ways, and cases is not gonna make the difference. What will make the difference is the brainstorming. It is truly coming up with our greater authenticity. That is where the solution lies, the Aquarius energy, Uranus in the sign of Taurus, because Uranus is Aquarius's ruling planet, and Jupiter will be in the same sign as Uranus, and Pluto, of course, in Uranus's sign of Aquarius. So there's a strong alchemical synergy and resonance between these planets This is where it's also about value, stability, money, finances, managing it. What do we give our power over? Where to do put the investment and where not to. So it's quite a complex energy, and it will play out uniquely in our individual lives. But as I said, it is our intelligence, it is our higher thinking, and it is the bigger dream of of who we need to be better said in the future that gets us there, that gives us the solution both individually and collectively. But as I said, this energy later on, but we must prepare for a moment of powerlessness, which might be also financial, because Jupiter will also be close to the nodes of the moon, especially North Node in Taurus, amplifying it, making it very important. We will feel this as a sense of urgency. North Node in Taurus, well, this is where individually we can feel this through as my future, but very important and necessary future goals, which are more material, even if it's not a material energy, even if it's self-worth. Well, that has a lot to material to do with it. Not necessarily in the sense of money, but anything else, how you honor yourself, and how much you spend, or how much you receive. And you know, we can always find a strong correlation between value, how we perceive it, because value is what we love, and of course, material manifestation of that in everyone's life, really, because our material lives, and some people might oppose this so strongly, but still we cannot ignore that many times it does reflect how we feel inside, what we love, how our love is, or how our emotional setup from within in that phase of our lives is. I do believe this would incorporate everything. So we will feel this, see this, experience this through very, very intensely. And Pluto, this is where it's retrograde right, and well, I can say right now, because the time when you're listening, it's already retrograde. So Pluto retrograde makes a difference because we might have felt this square until now under a Pluto direct, but now it's retrograde, so this is where a lot depends on, a much more depends on us as well. What, who, in any way, shape, and form do we allow to have power over us, and what not? And when Pluto's retrograde, what not is more um, highlighted within us than what is, if you know what I mean. And as I said, this can also be like a psychological house. So what has power us is also deeply personal. Our fears, certain emotions, certain inner imbalances, escapism, bad habits, toxic love, etc., etc. This is where for a lot of people the moment will come when certain bad patterns that do have power over them will be starved out. I do believe this is but it's not easy because Pluto is squaring the node and Jupiter, but as I said, in the middle of May, so it's different than it was until now. And this might also represent, because really this is where I want to go with this, financial turmoil collectively in our personal lives, along a short lasting one, an intense moment of turmoil that will change the financial landscape. Absolutely, something is truly bound to happen. Pluto and Aquarius, and maybe something is just the figures, facts, the trade and the stock and stuff like that. And Jupiter, the law, something with the law, and the North Node in Taurus, financial law, but in a large collective sense that Either we'll have a forced upgrade or something will be very, very different that will make a whole world perhaps feel powerless, but the powerlessness highlights who has all the power. And what happens after is the subject of another horoscope. But there is yet much more important energy happening this week, because around the 2nd of May, Mercury retrograde will meet in a conjunction with the Sun. So this is important because this sheds a light. We understand or start understanding, sometimes even with the heart or with the lens of love, what the value, as I said, Taurus, what this Mercury retrograde is in our lives, what we're doing, what we're not doing, what we are sorting out. So this gives us, yes, it's a combustive energy, so mentally it might not be all that easy because everything is important at the same time. That's stress, that's overthinking, but this is where overthinking is a must, you know. This is not the unnecessary overthinking. This is where even overthinking is helpful in a constructive sense, even constructive criticism. The mercurial elements, which usually are hindering, now they might be a bit helpful, you know. So whatever your Mercury comes to the table with to help, use that. But a moment of greater clarity and understanding, when the Sun is the self as well. We kind of know what our role, date, time, paperwork, when, how, with whom, all that we kind of know. Sometimes we know what we do not have on the table, and we have no chance of getting it right now. But that's also an advantage because we know that we have to focus on everything else that we can do that is available, and perhaps use our brainstorming spiritual powers and Mercury retrograde, our past connections, putting pride aside the Sun, to get help. Even if it hurts our pride, because Taurus is a sign of pride. Without, there is Aries, but there is all neighbors, the gateway. The Aries pride would have transformed into a different kind of pride in the sign of Taurus. And Taurus really knows how to hold it. It's really good at it. But this might be what the Sun and the Mercury retrograde conjunction on the 2nd of May might request us to do. Um, of course, there is another energy at play here, which goes, simultaneously. Venus in Mercury sign of Gemini holds a square with Neptune. So this square is disillusioning energy. The mind is the tool, Venus in Gemini, which kind of finds blockages, dead roads, either in logical process, connection, value. It's not worth it. A lot of not worth it is going to be processed. But Neptune is the stronger planet here. We can still find something alternative, because Pisces, after all, is the sign of alternative. Whatever disappoints us, fails us, or internally, Venus in Gemini, we deem it before even it's used as a valid mental tool, for example. Even if we try and use it, even before that, if it's deemed unworthy, it will never even appear. So this disappointment energy is actually not so bad, because we can use our playfulness, our imagination, our fantasy, our unique magic, let's say, to put some hope, some faith, some, you know, Gemini like adolescent attitude, the can do attitude, but I have to say, not in a foolish way, not in a sheer illusory way, because then you know that you're lying to yourself, not in that sense. But if we know how to use the best expressions of both these planets, we can actually fill a void and make the whole picture much brighter, much better. And we must not forget that Venus at the same time holds a sextile with Jupiter. And this is the saving grace, really, because Jupiter is the planet of hope, and it is starting to get energetic in the sign of Aries. It's not energetic yet, but the intensity is building. This is where it's like fuel burning. It really, really highlights the other planets which it converses with, and in this case, Venus. So Venus has this support from Jupiter, and the two benefics speaking together in a sextile. True hope, or better said, empowered hope, pure hope, is helpful. It is more than helpful because we can also share it. Or whenever we might not feel all that hopeful personally, Venus and Gemini, there can be hope everywhere around us. Neptune, arts, music, internet. Neptune does not rule the internet. But Gemini does. So on the internet, we can find similar experiences, how other people cope. Art, beauty, whatever you want to help us navigate, the more difficult periods. And at the end of the day, there are friends, siblings, family, other people, Mars in the sign of Cancer, but also Venus in the sign of siblings, who can help us when our own faith is not enough, when our own hope is not enough. No problem. There is backup, there is support, and reaching out and asking for it. Needless to say, the bad part where this Venus and Neptune square can turn into something really not so pleasant is when we drown our own hope in despair and doom and gloom. I didn't want it that way. When it's a self is when it's an ego storm, then we drown it in that disappointment. This is where even disappointment has a lot of good in it. And if we manage to truly see it, feel it, live it that way, it will be very, very, very surprising because Uranus sextiles Mars as well. And that surprise, that is your intuitive feelings, because we cannot ignore the higher expression, the intuitive side of Cancer, the home of the moon. It has a lot to do with the soul. So Mars activating it, well, your intuition, even your instinct at time, but the higher instinct where it's fueled by love, by the desire to protect integrity, etc., etc. When it's fueled by this, it goes a long way. Gestures, Uranus can mean the higher mind as well. So even certain things we channel, we just pick up on, if we follow it, it can go a long way. Now, of course, this can mean a lot of connections. We get connected with like-minded or people who live for the same principle, the same purpose. This energy does connect, but at the same time, this also has financial solutions on it because it can come as a surprise. It can, small risks or asking for help or receiving help can really, really make a difference because this is one of the expressions of this Mars in Cancer. And another intense energy we have on the 5th of May when there is a lunar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio, one that is opposing Uranus. So Uranus is again activated. This can be a highly intense period. This is the more fated side of the energy. This is where something is being revealed, something is shocking, something will change the way we feel collectively and individually alike. This can reveal secrets, this can reveal certain shocks, coming out of the closet, but in any way you wish. Um, Sometimes this can have to do with the ruling planet is Pluto going retrograde back into Capricorn. So reveal who did what when Pluto was in an erratic degree of Capricorn, or even who did what and how it was managed after 2020, January 2020, what was done under COVID. And as I said, this is how this will lead up when Pluto will square Jupiter. The law, legal system, legislation, courts of justice, what happens there. This is how it's setting up. So something is revealed, something is shocking, something is, the Scorpio can represent murky water. It can represent filth, toxicity. This might have an ecological disaster written on it as well. This can be some investigation because Scorpio is also the criminal, the all that side, investigating, detective stuff. So someone reveals something, but it's Mercury retrograde. We must not forget everything is a lie right now. We must wait until the 14th, May the 14th, when Mercury goes out of retrograde and starts moving back on the path it took backwards. So that will kind of decipher whatever is being revealed at this moment. And speaking about Mercury, Mercury is also conjunct Vesta. So, regardless of what happens, this Vesta is a protective power. Our minds are in Mercury protection mode, where we apply extra diligence, where we truly see things in a rather mature way because we need to. So Vesta keeps the flame of, you know, protective instinct burning deep within us. This is a good energy because Mercury retrograde conjunct Vesta, even when we're prevented to do something, say, write, communicate, sign something, that prevention, regardless if we change our feelings or life just Mercury retrograde just mixes it up for us, there is a protective element there. It's for our protection. And there later on, towards the end of the week, Mars also holds a trine, starts holding a trine with Neptune. Now, Mars, when it was in the sign of Gemini, and many times, 3 times under the Mars retrograde in Gemini season, so December until pretty much first half of March, there was also Mars Neptune square. That was really, really heavy and hard for us. Life might have seemed at that moment as a episode from the Twilight's relations, communication wise, news, how things are done, friends, everything was affected by this Mars squaring Neptune. But we have done a lot of good things under it. Wise, diligent, following our greater instinct, trusting where the flow of things take us, trusting spirit ultimately. This is when we get the better part, when we get the reward for our trust. Because this energy is where something is coming karmically, or from family, or from community, or from our own past deeds especially. It comes to greet us, to help us, to make our lives easier. It comes as something to make us happier in that sense. So this will, and needless to say, this is such a good energy for healers, spiritualists, psychologists, everyone who is in a people service, and artists out there. This is a really, really wonderful energy that can delight deeply and give a lot of soul strength. But of course, we cannot ignore that the eclipse is going to be heavy, so we need to prepare ourselves for it. If you'd like to hear more about this lunar eclipse, I have a specially dedicated video for that, which also includes a horoscope for all of the 12 signs with the lunar eclipse in Scorpio theme. So, unfortunately, I have to leave it at this because Mercury retrograde, even in my life, my megabytes what I can upload are limited right now. So thank you so much for the understanding, and I will get back to you with a separate video speaking more about this Pluto retrograde and how it might affect us. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all the love and support. And until next time, bye for now.